Do you know what's great about being a Liverpool fan? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Especially right now anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have the odd moments of brilliance. We win the odd trophy here and there. But usually that's through absolute stress or behind closed doors, and it's come after years of pain, in all honesty. And following Liverpool the last couple of years, it's like being in a mad toxic relationship. It's just all over the place. It's unstable, it's unhealthy, and it's just all a bit of a mess, to be honest. You see, don't get me wrong, Liverpool have a very, very good team. And they have a very good manager. But through years of negligence from the ownership, through years of not understanding what Liverpool needed to do, through years of a lack of investment, Liverpool have found themselves in an absolute mess going into this season. I genuinely believe that Liverpool could potentially finish outside the top 7, possibly even outside the top 10. Liverpool could have a bit of a season like Chelsea had last year, in my opinion. And Jurgen Klopp might even walk halfway through the season. I know it all sounds like a bit of an over-exaggeration and everything else, but I just think Liverpool, as it stands, 11th of August 2023, do not have a defensive midfielder. Last night, it looked like we solved the problems. It looked like we had finally woken up, and it looked like finally Fenway Sports Group took out their wallet and checked it and said, you know what, we actually do have money, we might as well spend it. Because this whole notion that Liverpool do not have money, this whole notion that goes around in the media, that goes around on Twitter, that goes around on Sky, that Liverpool do not have money to invest into the club, it's just an absolute joke. Like, Liverpool are one of the biggest football clubs in the world, one of the biggest organisations, the revenue that they bring in every year. And even at that, we've been selling lots of players as well. We've got a huge amount of players off the wage bill, and Henderson, Fabinho, Keita, Chamberlain. So how is it that Liverpool don't have money? They do have money. You know, they're obviously just trying to, obviously save themselves in the transfer market, get the best deal, make it look like they have no money so they can swoop in and obviously surprise people with transfers and everything else. Last night, Liverpool bid 110 million for Moses Caicedo of Brighton. Now, is Moses Caicedo worth 110 million? In my opinion, I think it's very, very far-fetched. And I think even for Liverpool, even though it's a player we definitely need, and don't get me wrong, I think he'd be a great signing, 110 million is mental. But at the end of the day, desperate times call for desperate measures. Liverpool need a defensive midfielder. At this stage of the season, going in, a couple of weeks till the end of the transfer window, we need to get someone in. And if we don't get someone in now, we could be in massive, massive trouble. It was looking like it was going to happen. But then absolutely out of nowhere, Chelsea have completely, pulled Liverpool's pants down. I mean, this reminds me, as a Liverpool fan, like you walk into a shop, you see something you want to buy, you walk up to the counter, someone else comes from behind you, pulls your pants down, everyone can see everything. That's literally what this is like. Do you know what I mean? And what you see there is not good. It is not good as a Liverpool fan right now. It's just an absolute mess. And to be fair to Caicedo, he obviously wants to go to Chelsea. He probably had it in his mind that he was going to Chelsea. Terms had been agreed at the end of May. I think maybe he considered going to Liverpool, and that's why it looked like this morning the deal was actually going to go ahead. I don't know what happened. Has he been offered more wages? Does he want to live in London? Maybe living in London's more of a sort of more luxurious than living in Liverpool, to be fair. Because at the end of the day, like, Chelsea aren't in Europe. I know Liverpool are in the Europa League. I suppose there's maybe not big of a difference. Chelsea probably have more of an ambitious project going on, whereas with Liverpool, we don't really know where we're going, to be honest. But at the end of the day, Liverpool have found themselves in this situation through years of lack of reinvestment, through years of lack of investment into the team from start to finish. I mean, if you go on Twitter, you go on social media, you'll see hundreds or thousands of fans complaining about Fenway Sports Group and going mad about them. And you do seem to have another bunch of crowd who, want to correct a lot of these fans and say, oh, well, look at Van Dijk, look at Alisson, look at these players we brought in, look at what we achieved. That was all Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp, undoubtedly, he was the man who made all them things happen. Previous regime who would bring the transfers in got things spot on time and time again, and it's just been an absolute mess in the last couple of years. You look at since 2021, I would say, when, I suppose, going into the 2020-21 season, Liverpool, obviously, on the back of having won the Premier League in 2020, won the Champions League a season previous, Liverpool were on top. Like, don't get me wrong, Manchester City were certainly going absolutely nowhere. But it's fair to say Liverpool were in the top 2 in the country, and they certainly weren't a million miles away. In that January transfer window, Liverpool had an absolute crisis. Defenders were, dropping like absolute bees. It was just an absolute nightmare. Defensive crisis. Players just dropping, all over the gaff. And we decided to bring some bloke in called Ben Davis, who never even played for the football club. He might as well have been sipping cocktails down in Marbella for all we knew. He didn't even play it. Did he even exist? He plays for Rangers now, so God help him. But Jesus, yeah, I don't know what happened there. And then you go into the summer transfer window. It was pretty clear Liverpool needed a midfielder. I think it was fairly obvious. I think anyone could see it because of the fact that Keita's made of glass, barely ever plays and wasn't good enough anyway. James Milner is nearly 50 at this stage, and don't get me wrong, to be fair, he's some engine on him and he's reliable, and looking at it now as a Liverpool fan, I actually would have kept him going into this season. Chamberlain barely ever played, Henderson was getting on, Fabinho was getting on. You needed someone to come in, freshen up that midfield, a bit like a Wijnaldum type player, and maybe someone as a defensive mid who could cover for Fabinho if he wasn't available. In the end, Liverpool brought in Fabio Carvalho, who Klopp just never really fancied, and instead we brought in Arthur Melo. I mean, we might as well call him Arthur Marshmallow, because the guy was injured for basically the entire time with Liverpool, and I think he played 20 minutes. What was the point in that, in all honesty? Throughout the entirety of the season, there was rumours, or last season there was rumours about Bellingham, there was rumours about this player, that player. We get to this summer transfer window and you're thinking, right, Chamberlain's left, Keita's left, Milner's left, right, I think fair, I think they all probably needed to be moved on. Henderson then decides to leave, Fabinho then decides to leave. We bring in Szoboszlai and McAllister, but we clearly need more. There's no defensive midfielder right now at the football club. Bajcetic is injured right now. He'll come back at some stage, but we've no senior defensive midfielder. Imagine being a day away from the start of Premier League season, from your first game, and you don't have a defensive midfielder. We were playing Curtis Jones at defensive midfield in pre-season. Don't get me wrong, I think Jones is a good squad player, and I think he's not a bad option to bring off the bench, and I think he's an attacking player, do you know that way? But he's not a defensive midfielder. I mean, Jesus, you might as well play Andy Robertson at defensive midfield. Even better, play Alisson at defensive midfield. He'd probably do a better job. And with it all, the Caicedo thing happens. Romeo Lavia, I don't know what was going on there as well. We're probably going to fork out 60 million for Romeo Lavia, and don't get me wrong, I think he could be a great player, but I think to rely on him right now is risky. Do you know what I mean? Because Liverpool need proven players who are going to be able to cut it in big games in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong, Lavia looked very good at times last year for Southampton, but he played for a team that got relegated. There was no pressure really on him to do well with Southampton. He was a young kid, and I just look at it and think it would be extremely risky to pin our hopes on him at defensive midfield when we've got Bajcetic, who's already a young upcoming player who can play there anyway. So all in all, it's a bit of a mess from a Liverpool perspective, and that's before we even discuss our issues at centre-back as well. Joe Gomez clearly isn't good enough. Joel Matip is barely ever plays. Kanate is his injury issues. Van Dijk is, don't get me wrong, one of the best defenders in the game, but even by his standards, he's definitely regressed in the last couple of seasons. So Liverpool are having awful problems at the moment. And to be honest with you, things are not looking good right now. And I really do think that finishing outside the top 7 or top 10 this season is it could happen. It really could happen. And you could see Jurgen Klopp getting frustrated and possibly leaving at the end of the season, which would be heartbreaking as a Liverpool fan, considering everything he has brought to Liverpool. We'll see what happens with transfers. As we know, things can change very quickly. It wouldn't surprise me by the time this video is uploaded that Caicedo has instead decided to join Man United. Do you know what I mean? It just could happen. It could happen, and who knows? Liverpool will probably end up with some random bloke from Tunisia at this stage to play in midfield. So there we go. But yeah, leave a like, subscribe. Liverpool, we're absolutely fucked, aren't we? There's no other way of saying it. And hello darkness, my old friend.